Smart24, driving business.
Good morning, dear viewers of Smart24 television. We are happy again for God to have given us the grace to wake up, especially to enjoy this program. Wherever you are, please, you're welcome to come and participate and follow our discussion. My name is Dr. Joseph Tindeba, once again the host, and we are blessed to have our dear guests. And on my left, we have Dr. Lawrence Muganga, and is the Vice Chancellor of Victoria University. Sir, you're welcome once again. The other time when you were here, we're blessed to have you, and I believe the countrymen and women of Uganda are waiting again to benefit from your service, especially in this communication.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joseph. It is always a pleasure to be here on Smart TV, interacting for the public. We hope you do get to teach us something, but you also learn something from us as we all concertedly develop our country.
Thank you so much. Again, today we are blessed to have our also a special guest from, again, University, Victoria University. He is an educationalist and the head of Department of Education, Dr. Kabela Pontius. It's a pleasure to have you, sir, again, especially for the first time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr.
Yes, sir.
Tindeba.
Yes, sir.
For hosting us
Yes, sir.
today
Yes, sir.
to this wonderful show.
Yes, sir.
And to our viewers, stay tuned to Smart TV, Smart24 TV. We're going to share a lot together to do with education and how we can together collectively establish a system of education that will benefit generations and generations of years to come.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Mr. Paul Kawanguzi, our policy expert, policy analyst expert, and again, legal expert.
Just
legal
have to add, he's my OB.
Oh, that's great. He's your OB.
Yes.
From Kasasa. So, Mr. Paul, once again, you're welcome. The viewers have been receiving the feedback. They appreciate for your tireless service, especially the voluntary sharing of information. Information is power. Once again, you're welcome on to Smart TV.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Joseph Tindeba, my colleague and one of the few presenters, moderators who's actually making a kill. I must say I'm so happy you have, you have improved so much. You've mastered the art so much. I have already said you are the new Shaq Sally of Uganda. I'm only praying that God actually takes you miles far. Smart24 for is giving us an opportunity to actually always appear here. But on a serious note, I want to use this television, this opportunity, to condole with the people of Uganda, the family of the late Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah. You know, as a former staff of Parliament, I am so much attached to the person of Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah, who was our boss at Parliament of Uganda.
Yes,
so as a family of Parliament, we feel a very big loss in the demise of the Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah.
That's true.
We just pray that may God actually strengthen the family and friends of the late Jacob Oulanyah. It's always a pleasure being here. I am very confident that actually the world will pick. I can say the feedback so far is so good. People have called us, people have given us recommendations, people have given input. So far, the program is just so much good. And as we hear, many people actually watching, they are benefiting from this very informed discourse. Thank you for choosing this team to always appear here. I can't say we are the most brilliant, but I know there are reasons why you actually choose us to come and appear here.
Yes, please.
Thank you. We trust that by the end of this program, we shall add a brick on the development of this country, especially in the education
people
system.
of Ginger are waiting to hear a lot from you.
Yeah, you know, this,
they appreciate you.
This TV has a genesis in Ginger.
Yes.
We have a very big network.
Yes.
So Ginger is part of, when I'm here, Ginger is represented.
Okay, thank you so much.
So when we talk about Smart24, talk about Ginger.
Thank you
so when are you representing them?
And it is,
dear friends, on another special note, there is grieving and there is also happiness somewhere, but of course it is circumstantial happiness. But again, we are welcoming the way it is, especially the country. As we are aware, yesterday there was again election of the speaker of for the Parliament of Uganda, for the 11th Parliament, and also the deputy. I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate the victory which was attained by the Right Honourable, the new Speaker of Parliament, Right Honourable Anita Monge, and we will trust in her words that she is ready to ensure that the legacy which the late Right Honourable Jacob Oulanyah has left will be built on, and especially to serve this country.
I'm told you used to be close friends.
Yeah, she's a Ugandan, and I don't have any choice. Every Ugandan is my friend.
You are Anita Ntayebwa.
Every Ugandan.
That's the information I have.
And tell Ugandans that today even your dressing code, your morning, your late friend.
Exactly.
The bow tie. Actually, I've never seen him.
I really do, but I recall him was a smart man and patriotic in his, this kind of attire of bow tie.
Yes.
Back to the point again, we also appreciate and congratulate the victory of our Deputy Speaker, Right Honourable Thomas Tayebwa, and that's what God does. There's time for everything. Some are mourning, others also saying that we've come in to serve, but all this is service. And the reason why we remember them, again congratulate them, is because it is in a spirit of serving the country. So our topic of discussion is the digital, the ICT education and new education curriculum policy. Our question and our discussion, as we intend to build up on our point of discussion today, is what is the hope of Uganda education sector? Will this be a move that will solve the current challenges that we have faced as a country in education? For some brief background why we got interested as Smart Television in this topic of discussion. It is last week, but 17th March 2022, a press conference was made, and the Minister of Education stated that they are working on a policy that will soon be presented to the Cabinet for approval to guide the use of ICT in institutions of learning, and also promote equity to access to quality education, use of that includes use of smart phones, and the emphasis was and is this can help students to conduct research in different topics and bridge a gap, a curriculum gap of lower secondary school to stop with the immediate effect. That gap where the access to ICT in secondary schools, you find in most cases what's happening in our country, the accessibility to computer, the accessibility to ICT, even at the university, is still a struggle. We are talking about a number of universities around now I think we are over 40 universities.
About 63.
About 63, thank you, VC. And the 63, if I carried out a research which I have not yet carried out, you will find that out of the 63, those which are emphasizing ICT education, digital education, there are few. And maybe as we go alongside the discussion, I'm happy that I'm with the researchers here, with professionals here, we may have even the information in that regard for the accessibility of ICT. In other words, what I'm bringing to us in our discussion, it seems there is low usage of ICT digital education in Uganda. And our new curriculum is supposed to be steering ICT. And ICT is important for countries which have made a headway or progress. You refer to a number of countries, technology has been central. And ICT is a contributory factor that can stimulate technology and innovation. And dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, with that means it will be contributing to part of the problem solution journey, which is unemployment, the high level of unemployment, and of course, to have the full education, which I'm referring as a full education, be literate. You don't find that you are illiterate. So the moment there's any experience of having illiteracy in any of the cycle, that means our education is not complete. And again, I have this to say in our situation analysis of our discussion before we take off. The application of ICT world over has become a critical part of the learning process for academic institutions, both outside and inside the classroom setting. Many institutions that have fully adopted ICT have recorded immense advancement in application of ICT for improvement of learning methods, teaching, research, development, and administrative functions. Again, according to the concept note I have from the Ministry of Education, it refers that the objectives, the specific objective for this, why we are to have the digital agenda under the education sector, is number one, to develop a consolidated and integrated strategic direction of how ICT shall facilitate and improve the delivery of digital literacy in the country. And again, to review, align, harmonize, and synergize the existing fragmented initiatives into one overarching strategic framework. Again, looking at another objective is to institute an integrated implementation approach, coordination and monitoring and evaluation mechanisms of ICT initiatives. Then also another objective in regard to this, to align ICT initiatives to the objectives of the education and sports sector strategic plan to effectively use and promote adoption of mature and emerging technologies, what I just stated. So it is still a question of debate whether how soon there will be a bridging of this gap. Previously, we discussed and we found out that in Uganda, we normally come up with some good policies, but the implementation. But we are not for a blame game. Through smart television and through such a deliberation, we are encouraging the country, the stakeholders, the parents over there, that ICT is the way to go. To invest and procure a computer, for your child, either those whom you are supporting, facilitating to go to institutions of learning, is very much important. That's number one. Then number two, the nature of our curriculum, the curriculum policy which we've talked about briefly, it also calls for taking the way of ICT as a way to go for the country to solve the existing challenges. ICT, the digital education, the new education curriculum policy, will it solve the existing challenges that Uganda has faced in the education sector? Dear guests, having said that, please, it's a pleasure to welcome you once again. And please, Mr. Paul, it's a pleasure to welcome you to take us through, especially to give us your point of view. You have 5 minutes, you can take us through and we go forth.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Joseph, for this wonderful topic that actually you bring to the attention of the viewers and Ugandans. We are dealing with a very complex subject, that's the complex of education. We agreed the other time that a country whose education system is actually dead has no chance of development. You have no chance that you'll develop tomorrow without an efficient, effective education system. So the quality of education in Uganda is actually a serious issue. It should be actually one of the issues that we should be spending time on. And the other time I submitted that we need actually to prioritize education. We need to give priority to education, because whatever we do, whatever you're doing, whatever you're planning, the reports you're doing, the speaking you're doing is as a result of education. So, I don't know which year, there was this advert that was actually running on TV, moving from analog to digital. It was called digital migration, something like that. I think we are even far away. I mean, in terms of timing, we are so low. I think the ministry even took longer to take it up. Because gone are the days when analog now serves anything in terms of transformation. You know very well that modern universities have taken up technology in improving the education systems. Most of the countries that we're talking about, including the Finland that we actually noted as being one of the best education provider in the world, they adopted technological changes to better the education system. So I want to agree with the ministry entirely that if we engage in true digital migration, digitalization of systems, this can actually improve the education system in Uganda. Why? Like you have submitted in the situation analysis, You know, you cannot now do research easily by going analog. Research requires that because most of the material actually is actually stored online. For example, we have online libraries. For those doing law, many of them know that we have online law libraries where a lot of materials is actually stored. We don't even have space to even store many of much of the information that we're talking about. If you talk about the heap of books, you can't even store it manually. You'll have nowhere to put it. So in terms of space, we need online storage where you can store a lot of stuff and you keep it there. So it is easier when you're doing research to refer to some of those materials. Even in libraries, in Makerere, where I'm familiar with, of course, Victoria University will also tell us, even checking those catalogs. Yes, you have to use an online system to check and look for a book that you want. So it is time that Uganda goes digital. But the question is, apart from saying we need to make sure that we have these systems in place, my question is, how are the teachers, for example, are they prepared to go digital? You know, we have teachers who cannot present a document, who cannot even present a lecture online. They cannot even present a lecture online. So this digital migration should start from the training institutions, so that we emphasize the teaching of ICT even in teaching institutions, so that the teachers move out to the institutions when they are very well prepared. You know, in countries where success has been made in terms of the education system, emphasis has been made on teachers. I was reading the case of actually Finland. Finland, you cannot become a teacher when you don't have a master's degree. So the emphasis is put on the person who is going to shape the kid, the person who is going to teach the child. You cannot just say we are going now to take digital migration to schools when we have not actually prepared the teachers. Many people have already said, and many analysts have said, UPE is a very good program. But the problem, it was rushed into implementation. We did not put there the necessary infrastructure before we could actually launch the program. Like we did not train enough, we did not envisage an upsurge in the number of students. We did not know that we shall not have enough space, we shall not have enough sitting gadgets like tables, desks. We did not envisage all those changes. We do not envisage that we need the teachers to be close at schools, so we do not prepare early. Now, if you're talking about digital migration, which is actually the new normal, I told you the other time, when COVID came, we had actually a problem. There are universities that were actually going to do exams, they called off exams. And you know, this was an inconvenience to students and parents. Remember, a parent has paid, for example, a room here in Kampala. He has also paid tuition. He has sold his go-to cow there to say, now I'm done with this student. Then you are calling off exams because of what? Because of COVID and because you cannot administer exams online. You know, universities struggled.
Very much.
Struggled. One, because of, first of all, when they even went digital, they said, let's do online exams. You know what happens? The internet. We're not sure of the internet. Very slow internet. So the government must invest in the internet fiber so that we have fast-running internet. Because to do research, you need fast internet. Fast-running internet. So government must, in the policy perspective, the government must invest in technological hubs. It must invest there. And this calls for an increase in funding.
Mr. Paul, you're still going on, and I'm just implementing on what you said as a gap, because you talked about the side of students. But even to be realistic, even the lecturers and the teachers, also there was a serious gap. You can continue.
Of course, that was my point. I'm saying the teachers, the lecturers, they are not informed digitally.
Very much.
They are not informed digitally. That's why I'm saying we begin from there. You become a professor. I know very many doctors who can't type. They use secretaries. In schools, secretaries don't do something. Let's take the training there. So that a doctor who is here, a primary teacher who is here, is digital in thinking, is digital in writing, is digital in speaking. Everything should be done digitally. But also, can we ask ourselves, you're talking about gadgets. How expensive are these gadgets? Are they cheap enough? Why are they expensive? This is a policy issue in terms of taxation. You know, government, if you want something to be deliberate, you must revisit some of these things. You must go as far as reviewing the taxation policy so that you have an efficient taxation system in this area of interest. You say now we want every child, because if you're not going to give freely, that means a kid, the student has to afford. Now, affordability, because I was interested in the issue of equity, where everybody can have access. Is it possible that every student, every child in Uganda can have access to these digital gadgets? Are you going to distribute them? If you're not going to distribute them free of charge in schools, then it means they have to be bought by parents or students themselves. Mm-hmm. Now, what is the level of affordability? That means they have to be as cheap as possible. Mm-hmm. Those are the gadgets alone. How about the internet? Is it, first of all, apart from being accessible, is it everywhere in Uganda? Mm-hmm. Is it everywhere in Uganda? Is it fast running internet? 2, can the students actually afford it? I know, you know, the cost of attending an online lecture, for example, is quite high in terms of data. Mm-hmm. This calls for government reviewing the policies on data, so that the data itself is cheap. First of all, we are in 2 situations where the data itself, for example, up to now, can expire. That you buy some companies, you buy a data bundle, but it expires. Mm-hmm. Now it expires, it goes where? I have paid my money, you're telling me it expires. And the minister is seated. It is not even minding about this. This is thuggery. I buy my data of 2,000, it expires, I've not used it. Why can't it be stored? Mm-hmm. I am happy that some companies have actually started looking at it. Mm-hmm. They have data that doesn't expire. Why should it expire really? Mm-hmm. In a country where somebody is actually giving out his money, hard-earned money. So, policy-wise, we must ensure that the internet is cheap. Mm. Because in ensuring this equity that you talked about, which is one of the objectives, you cannot have equity in the use of these services, where internet is expensive. Number 2, is the necessary infrastructure there to the extent that the kid in Karamoja can access internet easily. Or the internet, or digitalization will only be here in Kampala. So we must be deliberate. And this, like I said, it goes for increase in the budgetary allocation. We must be deliberate in increasing the allocation of funds to this sector. I read of certain firms that are coming in actually to offer internet in the digital world, building fiber systems. Mm-hmm. I am happy that Smart24 is a digital TV. It is a digital TV, and they promote this kind of digital education. I know the background, and I know how they offer digital services also. It is actually a very good thing. So we must make sure that the internet is affordable, that a kid in Kizing, where I come from, my local village, can actually access internet cheaply, without struggle.
One point as you finish, what do you think the government should do to be deliberate in this? Not only fantasy, not only just, receiving only good statements. What do you think the government should immediately do?
I don't even issue good statements. For me, my role is to do analysis.
I mean the way how we
and as a policy analyst, my role is actually to help this government.
Understand.
Whatever I've told you is what government should do. 1, I am saying they should be deliberate in training the teachers, the lecturers. The IT, the digitalization should start with the lecturers themselves. Okay. That's point number 1. Number 2, I have said that there should be a policy of making sure that internet is cheaper to everyone. Because if you want it to be equitably, you want everybody to access these services, then it should be cheap. Number 3, government should increase funding. For example, let me tell you, very few schools even have an IT lab. Very few schools. Mm-hmm. Don't only look at university, look at primary schools. Very few schools even have an IT even when they are government. Actually, those that are trying are the private-owned schools, and they charge expensively. Okay. So that's why I'm saying that government should increase the funding to the ICT sector. And of course, they work in liaison, ICT sector and then the education sector. So they should increase funding such that these schools, I don't know where this funding goes. It goes, I think, to the Ministry of Education, isn't it?
Yes.
It goes to the Ministry of Education.
Yes.
Now, if each school can actually have a technological lab where this training begins from, so that kids are inducted into ICT from the beginning, when they are still young, it becomes a little easier. Then lastly, I said, we need to make sure that the internet is cheap.
affordable.
And this goes to building the infrastructure, the necessary infrastructure.
Affordability.
You must have the necessary infrastructure. Why internet is
Yes.
expensive, it's because of the infrastructure. You must build the infrastructure. I have known of investment into this sector, but I don't know why internet is not actually wholly spread. I don't see it everywhere in the whole of Uganda. It's just in a few
We'll be
areas.
coming back to you.
When you go to Busoga here in Biende, you can't access it. When
Yes,
you
sir.
go, you know, deep.
We'll be coming back to you, and
Yes,
we
sir.
appreciate for the views discussed. What I stated is that we have had programs, they come and look to be good.
Exactly.
Not necessarily even either as we state them here, but at the end of the day, the realization, you know, when we go to policy expertise, it can't make sense if you may have a good policy and it cannot be implemented. A good policy which cannot be implemented is a dead one. You better leave it. You may, it's always kept in, you know, in shelves. We are coming back to you, Mr. Dr. Kabera Pontius. Our dear viewers, Dr. Kabera Pontius, he is an expert of education.
Sure.
And Smart Television, it's deliberate that I ensure I network with professionals so that the wealth of knowledge they have acquired and attained cannot only stay there. I'm here to identify such resourceful persons that they can be able to share this wealth of knowledge. Doctor, I know you spent a lot in terms of time and money to attain that. But one of, if it was a vow, we don't normally make vows. When you are graduating your PhD, one of it is that you will always be very generous. It's automatic, generous to share knowledge. That's one of the vow for us. And we welcome you once again here. But referring to what our colleague has you know, articulated, issues articulated very well, we realize that when we widen the current challenges, in the issue of challenges we are facing, I'm not talking about these urban dwellers, citizens. We go as far as some of the rural areas which cannot access. They are not accessing internet, they cannot access even the network. It's a good idea, but a lot is supposed to be done. The number two, again for reflection, to reflect on, I make this contribution and which I say it's sustainable if Uganda decides to pursue it as a country. I always refer to a country that I was familiar with for 3 years when I used to go to also deliver service. Rwanda, I used to go over there, the Republic of Rwanda. And one of their policy is if you go for secondary school, those students, our children, the Rwandan children who go for the level of secondary school education, the government has deliberately decided, it's a policy, to offer them computer. And again, for secondary schools, it's the same. So looking at that with a comparative study, because part of it is that, is it attainable? Is this challenge, the existing gap, realistically to be approached and maybe we get a solution for this existing challenge? Because we have stated of where some rural areas they cannot access network, this network into whether MTN and so forth. You're welcome once again.
Okay, thank you so much. Our presenter once again, Dr. Tindiewa Kabera Pontius is here to talk about ICT and the digital world when we are promoting the quality of our education system in Uganda. I want to be categorical here. Uganda, traditionally and comparatively, is one of the, I think, if not the best two, or the best country in East Africa to have the best education system. Because how do we define quality education? In my own understanding, quality education has got more to do with the quality of our outcome or output. I've tried to move around the world. The years when I was doing my PhD, when I was pursuing my studies, I did research in Mauritius. I used to move a lot with my supervisor. paper presentation. I went to Sydney.
Yes, sir.
And you find Ugandans are very well established. Graduates from Makerere University, students of JICO, former students of JICO, Jinja College, they are doing pretty well wherever they are. That sends a picture. It gives us a historical picture of our education from a traditional standpoint. While I believe in the renaissance in our education system, where we are heading, we've moved from the industrial age, information age, we are now in the skills age. And these are very important. But before we tend a seemingly particular picture to our education, let's look at the ordinances that have taken place in Uganda since 1927. The education ordinances, the Thornton ordinances, all those have had unimaginable recommendations to improving the quality of our education. When I go to the north and I interact with people in the north, you find they are very knowledgeable about their country's establishments in different sectors. That shows that it hasn't been all bad in as far as our education system is concerned, right? But now, like I've given different stages, where we are heading, we are now in the skills.
Doctor,
Yes.
there is something we want to put a bit right in our analysis. The level of attainment of education in Uganda, especially analyzing the concept of quality education service delivery, it differs in our nation. There are some we can call millennium, maybe we talk of 10 years, between these 10 years, and as you said, that it hasn't been bad, but there are also some serious unanswered questions. And as we intend to address to the stakeholders, which will be very important to bring them on board so that they can reflect on them. Because we are here not only either to critique, but again we are here to bring some of these facts. We have the UPE, we have Universal Primary Education, which was launched in 1997, 1999, 97, right?
96.
96.
I'm a UPE product. I
Oh.
started school in 1997.
Oh, that's good of you. Then we have also the Universal Secondary.
And he's now a doctor of education.
I will search more to know which UPE you went through. I will search for that.
St. Charles Rwanga kind of primary school.
Then also we have the Universal Primary Education. Then there is also the university. The quota system of where, of course, there's some sponsorships offered. There is education system you are referring to, which I subscribed to, especially before the 1997. Me, I'm not for the UP. I enjoyed the one of Obote, where they were even supplying us the stationery. Good books, property of Uganda,
called
not
property.
for sale. I enjoy those books, they motivated me very much. Because I could want to perform well so that they can give me an
Actually,
every-
students could only call them property.
Yes, it was for the government.
Yeah.
That one was far better. Then again, the reference I'm referring to, so that our dear viewers can understand. By the way, we applaud the education system of the regime of Obote. I want to say it in the camera. It was better. Because one of it, what I recall, if you could go to Makerere University, man, I began to work hard because there's a certain gentleman in our village who went to Makerere University, and the allowance he was to get was even to enable him buy a car, and even when you could visit, as if like you visited the minister, everything is provided for. So there was high care. And again, by the then time, including most of our senior citizens who are viewing us, they tell you they benefited much more in that education system. So having said that, I'm not cutting off short your discussion. Don't you think there is something that has gone wrong in our current education system, especially with a lot again which we must admire as a challenge in the UP and the USE and again university education?
Yes, thank you so much once again, Dr. Tindiebwa. You cut me short.
You have 4 minutes.
For me,
Yes.
this is my school of thought, especially when it comes to discussing such kind of issues. You must appreciate history. That's the reason I was giving the historical facts. And I am so proud of you. The fact that you've even come up and support my argument in as far as our historical education, traditional education in Uganda is concerned, and how it nurtured competent labor force that are serving the country, they are serving the continent, and they are serving the world. We are talking about digital today. The influence of technology requires that developing countries like Uganda and other countries adapt or follow the developed economies in using ICT or digital to facilitate teaching and learning. The key question here is, are we there? How ready are we to take on this new form of knowledge passing on knowledge to the generations for current and the future generation of students? My brother here, Kawanguzi, articulated very well some of the challenges that are existing. But it is down to a willing government, a willing system. But the fact that the Ministry of Education has actually come out to observe, they do research before they, the process of developing the policy. They first do thorough research. They have observed that it is a gap. And where the world is heading, we talked about, we are now at the skills level. We have moved from industrial information and now at the skills level. How do we ascertain that? And the issue of equity. How can we make sure that my brother, my sister,
who is in Chijadongo, who is in Kisolo, who is in Karamoja,
who is in St. Charles Rwangakande Primary School,
yes,
where I studied from for 7 years, can be able to access this kind of digital.
Is that in Masaka?
No, in Mitiana.
Mitiana
District.
Okay,
but formerly it was Mubende District.
Okay.
And I'm happy to actually say that I've had this debate with my brother here, Dr. Lawrence Muganga, about the effectiveness in the implementation of ICT in our education, how equitable this is gonna be. How are we going to make sure that, are we creating a class system against a classless system? Are we saying that the sons and daughters of Dr. Kavera, because for me I can afford data of 10,000.
Affordability.
I can afford data of 10,000 to give my daughter or my son.
We called it education appetite the other time. I think you remember.
The class difference.
It is called
Okay.
education appetite.
Okay.
Yeah. How possible is this going to be? Moving forward.
Yes, sir.
I think there is need to decentralize learning.
Decentralized.
Decentralize.
Well, it's decentralized. Here in Uganda, we adopted a decentralized system.
Yes.
Maybe you may
decentralize. We've lived in country. You're talking about, you're giving an example of Rwanda. As a comparative student, I did my PhD in comparative education and leadership. As a comparative student, a comparative scholar, that is a very good example. But key question here, have you studied deeper to understand the implementation of one laptop per child that is much talked about in Rwanda? Are you sure it is effective? I know where those computers are being made from here, One Stop Center on your way to Masaka. I went there. I used to report for the New Times. But you observe that computers, you touch on it, it cannot even. So the problems that are affecting our education are cross-cutting. Education in Africa is not a priority.
Education in Africa
is not a you find out that most of the developing countries are actually paying significant sums of money in military. The biggest budget goes to military
and public expenditure.
But when you look at education, because they have different justifications to explain why. They tell you, okay, education comes second to military. But there are so many schools, there are so many teachers, a lot. But what can be done to ascertain equitable access to quality education? I'm talking about decentralizing learning, taking learning from bottom up.
Bottom up.
Yes, bottom up. To make sure that we leave it in the hands of our parents, and we are here to guide them. We are here to empower them, right? We studied in UPE schools, and we used to hear that we have district education officer. But I saw a district education officer in my school, I think when I was in primary 5. And every time we came around on a big Yamaha motorbike, teachers would tremble and many of them would run away because they do not have clear lesson plan. We have parents and teachers associations. A parent representing one parent representing close to 1,000 parents in the school.
Yes.
How efficacy is that? How can one parent go to each and every household to tell them about the deliberations that took place in what? So we need to break down, to trickle down education to households and communities.
Education to household and communities. Yes, I'm
Households
appreciating the idea.
And communities. To make sure that these ICT, we empower these people. We can have community education organizers to be down there and talk about the current establishment, to make the parents appreciate and understand it, to also inform the government.
Thank you so much. We'll be coming back to you. I was enjoying the flow now of the discussion. You pointed out some pertinent points. I will not repeat them. But dear viewers, one of the key points that who the other day I appreciated what Dr. Muganga said, that those who are stealing public resources, it's you. You are with the minister, they are your relatives. And again, those who are to make this happen, it's you. You have MPs, you have ministers, you have district, education officers, you are the parents, and the idea is very clear. And again, if we go to the matter of policy, you are being represented by members of parliament. But now maybe if you didn't know what to demand from them, through them they are your voices, okay? Why can't you come as parents and say, this is what you're demanding? The UP and USC should be decentralized. I got your point. I was analyzing as you were discussing. And I realized that the current one, by the way, it's not decentralized in such a way that the policy review is not always done by the parents at the community level to say that for us we want this. Because there are some districts, Dr. Muganga, who say, for us we want to facilitate, to motivate our teachers. We want to pay a fee of 5,000. But again, you go back here to the central in the Ministry of Education, beginning with the head of state, said, no, if you attempt to ask any parent maybe any amount of money, we are going to arrest you. So I appreciate that's a key point, and I'm emphasizing on that point so that it can be taken on. But again, with these existing challenges, we need to be realistic, to know exactly what should be done. So now, Dr. Muganga, we are again happy to have you in this program. You'll have some 3 minutes, but you'll start off in the next session of the break. It will be the start point. We look at what exactly should be done, because these days, I don't know why, I'm applauding Victoria University. The other time, since when you said that it is a leading in some of these issues related digital and how your system is Sarah. Please, you're welcome to give us your presentation.
And thank you very much, Joseph, and the colleagues for their articulations. And the viewers, I hope you enjoying what we are hearing. And myself, I'm certainly enjoying what I'm hearing. But let's try to break down what is actually happening. And when we talk about education, that education that works, meaningful education, it is my submission that that education should mirror what happens in the daily life of every Ugandan, of every East African resident or dweller or an African. It should mirror your community. It should solve your problem. If that education is not doing anything like that or close to that, then that education is not very, very helpful. Now, it is also very, very important that we all understand what is our place, for example, as a country. What is our place in the world? Now, our place in the world can be classified in using 4 phases. That there was a time in this world when the world enjoyed what we called the first industrial revolution. And that basically, that is when you could see people coming up with steam engines that are generating water or something like that, and there's some trains moving. That kind of discovery, it never happened on the African continent. Then we came to the second industrial revolution. That still, now the discovery of electricity. Now we get to a chance now to start even producing hydro. We start doing something. But the significant part of it never came to Africa, or even later on to Uganda. So when we came to the third industrial revolution, the computer, the digital age we are talking about.
That's the third.
Now that's the third industrial revolution. Now that's when the computer becomes a little bit rampant. We start talking about a computer before even the word digital came in. So that is where we are as a country. That is where we are as most Africans. But guess what? The world has moved on to the fourth industrial revolution. That having a degree, the way you're talking about, and actually respectful, actually I disagree with you when you say that Obote's education was better than the education now. That time you have to compare with how many people did we have, what inventions were done, what manufacturing was happening, what economic activities that are happening at that point in time, and how did the education influence that particular economic activity, and how is this education trying to influence the economic activity that is happening now. You would realize that yes, that time the country was more agrarian, and not so much education was even supporting the agriculture sector of that time. And people funded themselves, found a way of becoming agriculturists and succeeded in a way they did. Today, the country has moved away from agriculture is still predominant in the country, but also other services have shoot up. Other manufacturing is up. And education is supplementing that.
You'll give us one statement as we go for a break.
Give me a second, just 1 second.
Okay, sir.
Now, when we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, where the world is, and we are not there, I want Ugandans and everyone who is watching us to understand that the education you crave for on a daily basis, and where you send your children, here is how it works. No employer in this country, no employer in East Africa, no employer in Africa, no employer in the world is looking for what you have studied and you know in your head. No one.
That statement, yeah?
No one. But rather, employers are looking for what you can do with what you know. Therefore, when you look at, you talked about the curriculum of Uganda, the new one, it is now emphasizing competence-based learning.
Competence-based learning.
Competence-based learning. In other words, learning by doing. You move from one level to go to another level after knowing when you can do something and you can prove it. And that is a welcome sign.
Yes,
it can remain on paper. It can remain on paper.
Yes, sir.
But now, the onus is on us as Ugandans, as we go to the break. The onus is on us as Ugandans like the Baganda have a saying, if I can translate it in English later on,
yes.
but in Uganda it says that chiso kya mbuzi kirekerera omubaazi kirekerera omussi ne kitunuulira omubaazi. In other words, that when they are slaughtering a goat, it's already dead.
Yes.
The eyes tend to look at this person who is removing the skin,
Yes.
but the eyes forget the person actually who slaughtered it.
We start from there, dear VC, kind of allow. We go for a break. You will take us. I will give you 10 minutes because you need to exhaust this discussion.
Yes.
And then we shall go for another round.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. Stay tuned on Smart 24 television, the best television you can get valuable information that can transform our society. Thank you.
Smart 24, driving business.